Okay, guys, greetings once again, and welcome to another edition by iCampSA. This edition, we're still looking at grade 12 mathematics. In this edition, we're looking at the 2026 pre-June exam paper 2. We're looking at question 2 of the Mpumalanga paper. And question 2 is focused on statistics, more specifically group data. We'll look at an interpretation of the Ogive curve. So let's go ahead and have a look. So we're given the question statement, which is that the height of 90, and this is very important, the height of 90 primary school learners were measured. The results are in the Ogive curve below, right? And then we're given the table subsequently, and you will see that we measured heights that are between 100 and 130, and then we classified them into different classes, okay? Now, if you observe carefully for 2.1, we are required to use the table or the cumulative curve to determine the values of A and B. So where is this A and B? So if you observe carefully, you will see that we have B here, which is unknown, and we have A here, which is unknown, right? So let's go ahead and figure this out. So we'll start by looking at question 2.1. Okay, so 2.1, what we are required to do is to figure out what is A and also to figure out what is B. Okay, but there's something that I need you to remember about cumulative frequency, which is that how we get to A, what you do is you take the 5, you add it with the B, then that is how you get A. So essentially, if you observe carefully, 5 plus B, let's try that again. So 5 plus B is equal to A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this equation number 1. And if we do exactly the same thing, which is essentially how we do cumulative frequency, you take the A, you add it with the 17, then you get 31. So what we have there is A plus 17, and that should be equal to 31, and this we can call equation number 2. So as you can see, we can easily solve for A. So A will be 31 minus 17. And if you do the maths, you will see that the value of A will end up being 14. Okay. Now that we have A, what we are going to do is we are going to sub A into equation number 1. Okay. So if you look carefully, we are going to have 5 plus B equals A, and A is 14. Okay. Which then makes our B to be equal to, if you observe carefully, 14 minus 5. And this ends up giving us a B value that is 9. So therefore, B equals 9. Okay. So those are our answers, guys. Let's quickly write them formally. So our answer for 4.1, it is the following. We obtained an A value of 14 and a B value of 9. Okay. Happiness. I hope that this does make sense. Now, let's go and have a look at the next question, which is 2.2. So we are required to calculate the average height. That is what we are required to do. And what I need you to remember is exactly how we find the average. Okay. So I need you to remember that the X, which will be our average, for group data like this, it is always given by the sum of, you'll have your frequency multiplying your midpoint. Okay. So I'll call it MP. And then this will be divided by N, where MP, what it is the midpoint. Okay, so let's go to the next page and figure out what is the midpoint, because we clearly need it as part of our expression. So how do we find this midpoint? Well, what we are going to do is we are going to use the same table to be able to find our midpoint. So what we are going to do, we are going to have a column here which we are going to call midpoint. Okay. And how we're going to find the midpoint is by adding this and then dividing by 2. Okay. So what we are going to have is our midpoint is going to be our 100 plus 105 all divided by 2. So let's quickly punch this on the calculator. So what you have is 100 plus 105, and this is divided by 2, and what we end up getting is 102.5. So what we do, we go and put 102.5. Okay. And then you go and find the next one where you are still looking at your midpoint. Now we're looking at this here. So it becomes 105 plus 110 all divided by 2. So we can go to our calculator. You do 105 plus 110 divided by 2. And what you end up getting is 107.5. So you end up having 107.5. So let's go down to the next one. And we're still looking at our midpoint. What we are going to do, we're going to add this one and this one, then divide by 2. So it's going to be 110 plus 115 all divided by 2. Okay, let's go ahead. 110 plus 115. All of this is divided by 2. If you observe carefully, you end up getting 112.5. So it's 112.5. So let's go ahead and do the next one. Should be very easy. So you have your midpoint equaling 115 plus 120. Okay. All over 2. Let's see. 115 plus 120 divided by 2. Just punching my calculator. What you end up getting, if you punch yours too, you end up getting 117.5. So 117.5. Let's go for the next few terms now, guys. So we're dealing with this one, 120 and 125. So we have our midpoint equaling 120 plus 125 divided by 2. So let's go 120 plus 125 divided by 2. And that is equal to 122.5. So we have 122.5. Let's go for the last entry where we're looking at our midpoint, and that will be 125 and 130. Okay, 125 plus 130 divided by 2. Let me create some space. So let's go ahead. 120. Sorry, it's 135. 125 plus 130, and this is divided by 2. So what we end up getting, is 127. So we get 127.5. So 127.5. So we are now in a position, guys, where we can go and find our, my apologies, where we can go and find our mean. Okay, because remember our mean, which is what we are looking for. That is what we are looking for. Our mean, we said it's the sum of our frequency multiplied by our midpoint. So it will be multiplying the respective midpoint. Okay, and all of this will be divided by n. So we're dealing with 90 learners, so we know that n is 90. Okay, so our n equals 90. So let's go ahead and deal with this. So for B here, we know that for B, we found it to be 9. Okay, found B to be 9. So let's go ahead and find our mean. So our mean is going to be, I'm going to start with the first one where I have 5 multiplied by 102.5. Okay, and then plus, we go to the next one, which is 9. That 9 will multiply the corresponding frequency, which is 107.5. And then plus, if you observe carefully, a frequency of 17 here, that will multiply the corresponding midpoint of 112.5. And then plus, open bracket, we go to 28. So 28 is a frequency, will multiply 117, so 117.5. Okay, plus, if you observe carefully, 21 times 122.5. And then plus, if you observe carefully, 10 multiplied by 127.5. And remember, all of these guys will be divided by n. And our n we figured out to be 90. Okay. So if you go ahead and you do your calculation here, you will end up seeing that if you sum up the top, you will end up finding 105.30, and the denominator is 90. So if you go ahead and punch on your calculator, you will see that you will end up getting 117 centimeters. Okay. So this means now we can provide our answer because they ask us what is the estimated average height. So we can go ahead and say here our average height is approximately 117 centimeters. Okay. So that is our average height. We're done. So we can go to the next question where we look at this 2.3. Okay. So in 2.3, we are required to estimate, or we should use the Ogive curve to determine the number of learners who are taller than 112. Right. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to 112. So this is 2.3. So let's just cut this here. And let's focus on 2.3. So in 2.3, we're looking at learners who are taller than 112. Okay, taller than 112 centimeters. How many are they? Well, in order for us to figure this out, what we are going to do is we're going to do this. Let's use pink. I'm going to go and look for 112 here. So let's first see if we can make sense of what is happening here. So you have 110, then 115, which means here, if you think about it carefully, that should be at 112.5. Okay, so 112.5 is just between these. Okay, so we can just take any point just before this. Sorry, so this is 112.5. So we can just take anything just before it. So we can just go here like that. And then let's see which line we should move with. It's round about this one here. Okay, so that is what we are getting for 112. So if we look at 112, that becomes the cumulative frequency. But we want learners with a height which is greater than this. So what you will observe is that the value that we are reading here is 20. Okay, we are reading 20. But remember, the total number of learners is actually 90. So we need to figure out how many learners, therefore, are between this from here to there, which then gives us the number of learners with a height that is greater than 112. So if you do 90 minus 20, you get about 70. Okay, so I hope that you guys are able to make sense of what is happening here. But let's think about what is happening. Yeah, in fact, that should be okay. So let's go ahead and provide our answer. So if you observe carefully, we are going to say here our answer. We are going to say about 70 learners are taller than 112 centimeters. Okay, so you just need to use this here. Okay, I hope that this does make sense, guys. And remember, they usually do give a margin for the answers. So you might have gotten 69. Some of you, that is still okay. Okay, it's still okay. It's a graph at the end of the day that you are trying to interpret. But get the concept, make sure that you understand it, and go and apply it generally. Because remember, this here is our 1112 centimeter. So if we go to the right, which corresponds to going up, these learners have a height that is bigger than this 112 here. So that is why we had to take the 90 and subtract exactly at this point here, where we have a cumulative frequency of learners that have a height of 112, and we got about 20. Okay. So that is what we have, guys, and I hope this does make sense. So with that said, we can pause here for this lesson. And as always, it is brought to you by iCampSA. Very good, guys. So please do make sure that you share with your friends which you think might benefit from these awesome lessons that we offer. So let's pause here now, guys. Cheers and take care.